One of the insane things we continue to hear about Kamala Harris is that she doesn't have any policies. Now, aside from that being just not the case, if you were to ask these same people to articulate the types of policies Donald Trump wants to implement, do you think they'd be able to give you a straight answer? Because Donald Trump doesn't really talk about policies. At his rallies, he talks about how much he hates immigrants and how he wants to use mass deportations to get them out of the country. The closest he comes to policy is talking about these widespread tariffs that he thinks are going to magically fix everything under the sun. So it's quite ludicrous. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, recently gave a speech at the Economic Club of Pittsburgh where she laid out her economic agenda. The economic agenda consists of 3 separate pillars. We will get to those in a second. But let's first take a look at some of the accomplishments she's been a part of at the Biden and Harris administration.
Over the past 3.5 years, we have taken major steps forward to recover from the public health and economic crisis we inherited. Inflation has dropped faster here than the rest of the developed world. Unemployment is near record low levels. We have created almost 740,000 manufacturing jobs, including 650 at the battery manufacturing plant over in Turtle Creek. And we have supported another 15,000 jobs at Montgomery Locks. So these are local, great examples of the work that we have achieved thus far.
I think it's a very good idea for Kamala Harris to be leaning into these accomplishments. People are quick to forget that when Biden-Harris came into office, the economy was in shambles, COVID-19 was running rampant, and Donald Trump did not have a good plan or even anything of substance to hand over to them. So for them to bring us through the end of the pandemic, get people vaccinated, and then get this soft landing that all economists thought was impossible is quite an heroic feat. The Biden and Harris administration has done an exceptional job at making sure that we are not dipping into another recession. So I think it is behoove of Harris to focus on some of these achievements while also explaining to people that there is still work to do. And that's okay. But I would definitely be taking credit for these accomplishments if I were in her shoes, because the Biden and Harris administration has done a lot of great things for this country. But let's go ahead and move on to the first pillar of Kamala Harris's plan. Obviously, we're not going to be able to watch the whole thing, but this first pillar is about lowering costs for all Americans. Let's go ahead and take a look.
The most practical thing we can do right now is to cut taxes for middle-class families and individuals. And that's what we will do. Under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a middle-class tax break. That includes $6,000 for new parents during the first year of their child's life. To help families cover everything from car seats to cribs. We'll also cut the cost of childcare and elder care. And finally, give all working people access to paid leave, which will help everyone caring for children, caring for aging parents, and that sandwich generation, which is caring for both.
So as you can see, these are concrete policy ideas. Nothing controversial about these. These are kitchen table issues. She's talking about giving people tax cuts. She's talking about child tax credits. And let's not forget that the child tax credit that was extended under the Biden administration cut child poverty in half. In half. And then Republicans voted against it, and now we no longer have it. So if we have somebody who's out there fighting for something like this, it's going to be a great thing for families. She also talked about paid leave. And the things that we won't be able to get to are, down payment assistance for new homeowners. She talked about cutting regulations to build 3 million new houses. She talked about federal price gouging ban and antitrust enforcement. And she also talked about negotiating costs with Big Pharma. This is another thing that the Biden-Harris administration has already accomplished. I think they got the 10 most popular drugs and was able to negotiate those prices so Americans are not paying as much money for their medicine. These are all really great things that Kamala Harris can lean into if she were to become president. But moving on, let's go ahead and take a look at her second pillar. Her second pillar is about investing in small businesses and innovation. Again, meat and potato issues, everybody.
Well, we can make it easier. We can make it easier for our small businesses to access capital. On average, it costs about $40,000 to start a new business. But currently, the tax deduction for startups is only $5,000. So currently, for startup costs, the tax deduction is $5,000. Well, in 2024, it is almost impossible to start a business on $5,000, which is why, as president, I will make the startup deduction 10 times richer, and we will raise it from $5,000 to $50,000 tax deduction. And provide low and no interest loans to small businesses that want to expand. All of which will help achieve our ambitious, some would say, but that's okay, let's be ambitious, our ambitious goal of 25 million new small business applications by the end of my first term. I know this is very achievable.
Again, so there should be nothing controversial here. She's taking an understanding of the business environment and saying, hey, maybe accessing capital might be too hard for some people. So let's make sure that we are providing low and no interest loans to new businesses. She also talked about upping that startup tax reduction or startup tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000. And businesses will be able to structure how they want to use that deduction the way they want to. So if they want to take it all in the first year, they can do that. Or if they want to structure it out and use it over a number of years, they'll be able to do that as well. I think these are all real great things to think about as far as businesses here in the United States. And this could definitely be helping many people who might have that idea but might not have the capital they need to bring that idea to market. So I think that these are, like I said, meat and potato issues that can help everyday Americans. Now let's go ahead and move on to her third pillar, where she talks about leading the world in the industries of the future. New tech, bioengineering, whatever it may be, let's go ahead and take a look at that.
So I will recommit the nation to global leadership in the sectors that will define the next century. We will invest in biomanufacturing and aerospace, remain dominant in AI and quantum computing, blockchain and other emerging technologies, expand our lead in clean energy innovation and manufacturing, so the next generation of breakthroughs, from advanced batteries to geothermal to advanced nuclear, are not just invented, but built here in America by American workers. And we will invest in the industries that, for example, made Pittsburgh the Steel City by offering tax credits for expanding good union jobs in steel and iron and manufacturing communities like here in Mon Valley.
So I love to hear it. This is Kamala Harris being a cheerleader for the United States. We do innovation well. We start businesses well. And we can provide the tools necessary to those businesses to make sure that we are out on top. Talking about being a leader in innovation across the world. We definitely want a president who recognizes that we have the talent, the smarts, the grit to bring new innovative ideas to the world. And I definitely want my president out there making it easier for people to do that, because this is something America has been very good at, is bringing new ideas to market, innovating, inventions, whatever it may be. And of course, this wouldn't be an economic agenda unless we talked about cutting some red tape and some of the bureaucracy. Let's go ahead and listen to her on that.
But the simple truth is, in America, it takes too long and it costs too much to build. Whether it's a new housing development, a new factory, or a new bridge, projects take too long to go from concept to reality. It happens in blue states, it happens in red states, and it's a national problem. And I will tell you this, China is not moving slowly. They're not. And we can't afford to either. If we are to compete, we can't afford to either. As president, if things are not moving quickly, I will demand to know why, and I will act. I will work with Congress, workers and businesses, cities and states, community groups and local leaders to reform permitting, to cut red tape, and get things moving faster. Because, look, as I said, patience may be a virtue, but not when it comes to job creation or America's competitiveness. Many of you know the Empire State Building, you know how long it took to build that? 1 year. The Pentagon, you know how long that took? 16 months. No one can tell me we can't build quickly in our country.
Again, I do not think that these are controversial things. I think whether you are on the right or on the left, there are some circumstances where permitting is too burdensome. So being out there and reforming some of those processes can be good for many Americans, whether we're talking about building new homes or new factories. We need to make sure that our regulatory environment isn't, too burdensome for growth. So we definitely want a president out there fighting for these types of ideas. Now, I know we didn't have time to go over all of the different ideas that she laid out in this economic agenda, but let's go ahead and go through a list of the things that she did mention. And I may have missed a few, but I definitely would recommend you go watch the speech for yourself. She did an excellent job. She was able to articulate these ideas well. She was able to speak with an understanding of how these policies would work and how they could benefit Americans. So I definitely think you should go watch it, because I think it's important that you hear the actual candidate speaking on the issues that they're talking about. Unlike somebody like Trump, who has all of his surrogates try to explain what he says. But let's go ahead and go through a list of what she talked about. She talked about cutting taxes for the middle class, affecting more than 100 million Americans. She talked about not increasing taxes for people making under $400,000. This is something that Biden pledged to do, and this would be a continuation of that. She also talked about that $6,000 child tax credit for new parents in the first year of the baby's life. This could be very beneficial to new families. She talked about paid leave for all workers. She talked about a $25,000 down payment assistance for new homeowners and cutting regulations to build 3 million homes by the end of her first term. She talked about a federal price gouging ban and antitrust enforcement. She talked about negotiating with Big Pharma to lower prices. And then she also talked about raising that startup tax deduction to $50,000. These are all great things. She talked about low and no interest loans for expanding businesses. She also talked about cutting degree requirements for 500,000 federal jobs. This could be huge for many Americans. She also talked about 25 million small business applications by the end of her first term. A lofty goal, but a good goal. She also talked about investing in biomanufacturing and aerospace, making sure that we're leading the world in AI, quantum computing, blockchain. She talked about clean energy innovation and manufacturing, talked about tax credits for expanding union jobs in manufacturing, investments for strengthening factory towns, and retooling existing factories. And she also talked about doubling the number of registered apprenticeships. I think that would be a great thing. And last but not least, she talked about reforming the tax code. And she also talked about reforming permitting, cutting down some of that red tape, making sure the regulatory environment is not too burdensome for Americans. I think these are all great things that we want the president to fight for. There's a little bit of, or there's something for everybody in here, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I'm sure some of these policy proposals can resonate with you too. So I think that these are lofty and ambitious goals. At least we know what Kamala Harris would be fighting for if she were to become president. Trump, on the other hand, I don't think anybody has a clue. When he was asked about what specific policy he would implement to help with childcare, he went on a rant about tariffs or whatever. Anytime Trump is asked about policy, he never gives a coherent answer. So don't let people come at you and say that Kamala Harris doesn't have any policies, because you can point them to this video to see a comprehensive list of just her economic agenda. And if you want even more information on her policies, check out her website. She doesn't just talk about the economy, she talks about healthcare, the border, and things of that nature. So don't let people lie to you. Kamala Harris does have a plan. She does have concrete policy ideas that she would fight for if she were to become president. And let's just remember that when we go to vote this November. But I will leave it there. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. If you could share with a friend or two, I'd very much appreciate that. I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year and would very much appreciate your support. If you want to learn how cognitive dissonance is ever so present in the MAGA universe, go ahead and watch that video now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.